Alright guys, hope you're doing well. So in this video we've got a testimonial from Giuliana Hulten. I haven't done a live video today because of this testimonial. Hopefully we'll be getting more testimonials in the near future. We've got another one coming up tomorrow. But anyway, this is Giuliana Hulten. She's the partner of a guy who did a testimonial a couple of weeks back now, 2 or 3 weeks back, called Liam Davis. And she's got a really exciting story to tell. So I'll leave you with it and enjoy the testimonial.
I grew up in a pretty fortunate family situation, I'd say, a pretty good one. I had my two parents with me all through growing up. They're still together. And I had an older sister, I still do. And, I was breastfed. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she was always there. And my dad was actually retired by the time I was born. He was a little older, so he was always there too. Yeah, which is really nice.
That's good.
Yeah, super important. I was breastfed till I was 3, so I think that's super important when you think about children. And my mom was a great cook. She would cook like breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day for my sister and I. And very religious household. So my mom was a Baptist Christian. Her whole side was devout Christian. They came from the Philippines, so they had a really strong root in Jesus Christ and in God. So
good stuff.
Good stuff. My dad was a little less religious. He actually went to a seminary when he was 14 years old on his own accord to become a priest. I think is pretty interesting. He didn't feel like he was getting the discipline from his parents, so he went to a seminary. He got kind of disillusioned with that. Some corruption in there.
Okay.
So he had values, like Christian values, but he was a little more like logical, young, cold. So I think I got that yin and yang concept early on between my parents, which is really, really important. Didn't really understand it until later. I thought it was like the fighting and negotiating was a negative thing growing up, but it's actually just like power balancing. Yeah. And I had a pretty good diet growing up, but I ate a lot of sugar, like a lot of sugar. So as young as I can remember, having sugary cereals, Pop-Tarts, like fluff.
Yeah. I think it's a common theme this now.
Yeah. Like white bread, just wheat, lots of carbs, lots of pasta. My mom loved making pasta. So it'd just be mostly like processed wheat and then some tomato, some vegetables, but not really that great.
Fair enough. So a good start to life. Not too bad. The junk food's creeping in there, but anyone watching, it does sound like the dynamics that you had when you was younger was very healthy. And you probably benefited from that as an adult. You can feel it. So anyway, carry on. I don't want to interrupt too much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like my mom's side, who's very religious, always tell me, like, they live in Hawaii now, so I'd visit every now and then. They'd always say, God bless this family. Like you are lucky.
Amazing.
So yeah, I feel very lucky, very fortunate. And just like the development program is just taking that to the next level. So I'm really excited to talk about it today.
Wicked.
And yeah, praise God. So yeah, lots of junk food though. I had an older sister who sometime probably when she's a couple years older than me, she's 3 to be exact, and she became vegetarian at some point. She did like a project on CAFOs, confined animal feeding operations.
Okay.
And I think I must have been in 3rd or 4th grade. I was really young, so probably like 10, or I don't know how, probably like under 10 years old. Um, and she kind of convinced my family to become more like health conscious in that way. So, you think, I mean, of course you don't want to be eating meat from CAFOs and factory farms and stuff. And that's really the only thing we had exposure to. There's not a lot of education on good meat and cool meat. So we jumped onto like the vegetarian thing. My mom stopped cooking chicken and steak, and I tried that for a little. I was super young, and I remember one day I was eating like, I know my favorite foods were just like raw romaine lettuce and like balsamic vinegar. Just like some really simple stuff like pasta with garlic.
Yeah.
And so one day I was in the cafeteria. I was super young and I fainted. And that was when I was vegetarian. I just hit
Oh,
the
wow.
floor.
How old around was this?
I was let me think. I was at Morse Pond. So that was 5th and 6th grade. I was probably 10 or 11 at that point.
Right. Yeah. That's
10,
young.
11 or 12.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So that was a little wake up call. I started eating meat again.
So your family attributed it to not eating meat?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think
Well,
the
that's
nurse actually did in school. The school nurse did that,
right.
which is good.
Good. Yeah.
So I started eating it again. Yeah, going into like junior high, high school, my like teenage years, I was still eating a lot of sugar, a lot of junk food. I grew up with the internet, so I was also getting exposed to a lot of like media and propaganda. So I was just consuming whatever, whatever felt good or gratifying. I think that was a huge lesson growing up, and still today is, delaying gratification. That's something my dad always told me, and I just didn't really understand it until the development program, really. Just like being responsible and doing your duties and serving. That was all just like non-existent when I was a teenager. And drank a lot of coffee. My mom loved coffee. My dad loved coffee. So I started at a really young age just drinking coffee every day. Like I remember my mom would just like make me these like chocolate cane sugar coffee drinks every single day after school, after a long day of thinking hard. I went to a private school, so it was really challenging.
Right.
So like thinking hard, I did sports after school, and then I would just come home sometimes and like fall asleep right on the floor as soon as I walked into the house. I would like lay down to pet my dogs, and then I would just fall asleep with my backpack and my shoes on.
No,
Yeah.
remember that sort of vibe too. Yeah, totally get it.
Mhm.
You don't
Yeah.
realize, I think, when you're young, when you're young, obviously you've got the body to take on junk food and to run around. But really, it's a bit of a red flag if your kids are coming through the door and just basically passing out on the floor after,
No.
I think that's what I used to do. And I think looking back on it now, they're the early signs of exhaustion. I mean, I used to, when I was younger, I mean, yeah, you should sleep a lot when you was young, but I was sleeping like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 hours sometimes, but waking up exhausted when I was
Yep.
young.
Me too.
That was a red flag, but it just doesn't crop up, I suppose, when you're that age.
I know, but then you have to ask, what's wrong with the parents? Like, I mean, my parents were great in many
Mm,
ways, but
mm,
my mom enabled a lot of that behavior. And it was my mom's, like, she was the housekeeper. So my dad was, the provider. He was there for um, like support when needed, but my mom was like always there. And just the
Well,
unconditional love.
whatever they did the right thing because we found the development program as a result. So, you know,
True.
swing about. In reality, they probably did a great thing. So, I got to thank them for that.
Yeah, it's a good perspective.
Mm.
Yeah, totally. And let's see. So, yeah, teenage years were kind of a blur. Then um, and about Christianity, like I was growing up into my teenage years, I was really involved in my Baptist church. My mom, my sister, and I would go to, and I would go to church camp like every summer for a while. I think
Mm.
5 years, and that just really resonated with me, the teachings and the scripture. Um, and even throughout like my teenage years, and then my late teenage years and my college years, which thank God are over. As of last spring, I graduated, and even though like I wasn't really actively reading the Bible or praying, I still had this understanding that that was there, and then that didn't go away. I didn't reject it, but I just walked away from it for a little bit. And yeah, so the development program has really like brought me back in union with the Holy Spirit in a pretty phenomenal way. Um, but yeah, as I got older, I got back to vegetarianism because, as I said, like I was, influenced by social media. That was the zeitgeist of the time.
Yeah. So we're
Vegetarianism is
talking about
healthy.
early 20s. We're in our early 20s now. Yeah.
No,
Finished with
it was more so, yeah, 2010, 2012, more like, I'm 23, so,
Okay.
yeah,
No
so it
worries.
was like 2012, 2013
Cool.
for me,
Okie doke.
yeah. Um, but it was around the early 200s when I initially became vegetarian. My sister did that project, so it was just starting to like enter our consciousness. Is like, oh, don't eat meat, meat is bad. um, but I went back to it, back to vegetarianism, and just didn't get a lot of sleep. I was like partying a little bit, not very promiscuous, but just like dressing in ways that were, suggestive, like manipulating people in that way, and I didn't even know it. And yeah, and then it was time to go to college, and I knew that I wasn't really ready. I knew that I had this hesitance, like, why is this necessary? Like I could just, do something else. I can learn a skill. I had some friends that were going to trade schools at the time, and that seemed
Right.
like a really viable way to make a living. But I was in a college prep school, so the pressure was really high, and my dad was basically like living for me to graduate college.
Right.
So that's like all he wanted, really.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went. Um, I feel like that's where I became the least healthy, honestly, was
College.
university.
Yeah,
Hmm.
university. Horrendous.
Yep. Yep. I like look at pictures, of me before in my senior year of high school, and I still looked like pretty full. I still looked, I don't know, like pure and happy, even though I was doing like, um, I was like partying occasionally and, eating junk food and watching crap on YouTube and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, but then like, well, I went to school for my first year. It didn't really like vibe with me. I took a year off. Um, so I was 19 at this point, 19, 20, took a year
Right.
off, stayed at home, worked, which is really good for me. I worked as I ended up landing a job at the farmer's market in my hometown. So
All
that
right.
really,
Cool.
yeah, that exposed me to, because I wasn't studying farming my freshman year. I was doing like art and philosophy, but after I worked at the farmer's market. I ended up majoring in sustainable food and farming when I went back. And that's where I met Liam. He was also a food and farming major.
Cool.
Which is funny because we're just like getting web development jobs now.
Yeah.
Why do you need to go to college to learn how to farm? Like, just after the fact, I'm like, I could have just done woofing or like, I don't know, worked on a farm.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we get tricked into it, I think, by our teachers at school. I think they have to meet certain targets, I think, and I don't know about you, but I got guilt tripped into going to university. I don't regret it. But I learned a lot of graphic design, which has helped me in the web design world. So, I think everything happens for a reason. Usually what I find is that if whatever your mission is later on in life, you'll generally find that you learnt some skills back then that you needed for this later mission. That's what I generally find when I speak to people. So don't chuck the baby out with the bathwater. There's probably something lurking around there that you that you'll be glad you've got.
Yeah, I can honestly think of a few things.
Well, you met Liam there, so
Yeah,
reason.
right. And he brought me to the development program, really. But up until that point, so after my gap year, I went back. It was my sophomore and junior year. Met Liam. I think I met Liam my sophomore year, and then we got together my junior year. So, but up until then, I was exposed to a lot of and susceptible to the, universities. Like, it's a deep, like, socialist, liberal propaganda machine, and everyone wants a good earth. Everyone wants a clean earth. Everyone wants people not to suffer, but it's just so insidious how people will use those things to manipulate vulnerable minds and hearts to give their power up to
100%, yeah.
Who knows who.
That's it.
Yeah.
And
So I ended up, it's pretty insane.
I think when you wake up from the liberal propaganda that's going off, it's a real big thing. I mean, you maybe have found it a bit easier than most people because you got brought up in more of a Christian conservative background. But for me, I was sort of, I had a lot of common sense, but I was still sucked into the whole liberal ideas, and it took me a while to really unwind that because it's, what I mean, it's clever how how it's integrated. They integrate everything in such a way where you're sort of sucked into it and you're like, well, yeah, this makes sense. But it takes, once you sort of unravel it a little bit and once you sort of figure out what's going off, then you're just like, oh man, this is this has run so deep. The toxicity and the shadow is beyond anything.
Yeah.
It's quite
Yeah.
insidious.
I mean, there's a verse that's like, Satan will come as the angel of light, So,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. Yeah, so actually I got so like drawn into it. I was double majoring my sophomore year in anthropology and sustainable food and farming. So anthropology, cultural anthropology, the study of culture. Great thing, but it definitely is a cesspool of like Marxist thinking. And yeah, so I was very into like social justice and like I was focusing on Native American culture, and I just started to harbor this resentment for, and it was just so entrenched in the curriculum and in the just like conversations, but honestly hate for white people. And I could feel I was trying to hide, or I was trying to sort of put my Filipino ancestry on a pedestal and then like kind of ignore my dad's like European side. And I was just, yeah, it's just kind of sickening.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I found myself just getting involved with people who were very much on that train of thought, like, oh, we're in the patriarchy, like F white men, and
Oh, man,
it's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing.
it is embarrassing. It's so cringe.
It's
Yeah.
so cringe. I
Yeah.
wasn't too deep in it though, that like I think it was so easy to just snap out of it for me. And I think you're right that my background and just like God's role in my life and my family's life has really blessed me. And even though I had like definitely had brain fog, definitely was like I was insecure and I just wanted to fit in with the people around me. I like ran to that maternal, like almost toxic maternal energy that I think a lot of these groups have, where it's like, oh, we need to care for these minorities, and oh, we need to just like praise Gaia,
And these people, they talk about toxic masculinity, but they're actually doing toxic masculinity.
Yeah,
That's what makes me laugh. Crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's that like tyrannical force, that like hard, like this way or else, Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
so
Meant to be built on sort of love and light, but it's actually quite a violent,
yeah,
a very violent scene.
right. And it really is the metals. It really is.
100%. 100%. And the auras are damaged. And the energy's mixed up. The yin aspect of the energy is just completely through the roof. And you're completely right. A lot of snapping out of it does come from parental stuff. Luckily for me, my parents were, they weren't religious, but they was quite grounded in their thinking. And I think that's one of the reasons why I managed to snap out of it too. But I know some people that are really thick into this, and when I speak to them and speak to them about the parents, parents have brought them up in a certain way, which makes you realise that it's much more difficult for them to get out of it. To see it from a more balanced perspective. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, and everyone has their role in this
For sure.
in this
For sure.
plan. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
mysterious reasons why some people just can't snap out of it.
So Liam was the sort of knight in shining armor then.
He was pretty deep too in the yin.
Oh yeah, he was mentioning
Probably
that.
more so than me.
Yeah. I did get that vibe a little bit actually. No, he was talking about it on his testimonial.
Yeah.
But the good thing about the program is how yang it is, and it doesn't take long really for the program to start doing its work. Molding you into. It's not about being yang. It's just about being balanced. And the problem is in the 21st century, what we live in is that the spectrum of left and right, yin and yang, chaos and order is shifted to the left. So anything sort of towards the right, it's actually more central, in my opinion. Actually we're shifting towards the center because everything's been shifted to the left too much.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so I mean, yeah, we talk about being yang and being this and being that, but in reality, it's not about being yang and sort of looking over at the yin. It's about we're so far shifted to the yin aspect of life that by being more yang, the yin energy is still so powerful that we actually become more centrist. But you've got to keep doing the yang because we're so much shifted over there. So actually, we're just basically being central, and I think that's something that we probably should talk about more on the program because it's not about being all yang. We don't want to be all yang, but we want to be much less yin than what we were. We want to become more central.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Yeah,
what's important important to know.
It is very important.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Mm.
It's a concept, I learned in like history class when I was very young, is that, when depending on where the issues lay, like liberal and conservative change, the definition changes, it shifts. So somebody more conservative now is really just looking out for their family, and they just want of course they want community, but they don't want government rule,
It's too easy to label these days, the left and right. I mean, really, the only thing that you can label left and right, sort of quite honestly and factually, is probably left economics and right economics. But everything else, they just slap these labels on quite easily. But it's more about energy, and it's not about energy. Obviously, left and right sort of changed over the years, but the energy, like the energy of yin, we're so in that energy. Chaos is constantly surrounded by chaos.
Yep.
Coronavirus, you wake up this morning to the Beirut is basically just being flattened. So we are in chaotic times, and it's just about bringing more order to the chaos. It's not about being orderly and yang and being right, as opposed to left. It's just about balancing things out. Balancing things out.
Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely.
So you met Liam, and he introduced you to the program.
Yeah, he had read Yin Disease, the article, a few years ago when he was heavy into veganism. He probably talked about it on his testimony. And then I actually was having a lot of yeast problems at the time. I was literally making bread a lot, and I would just eat the yeast. I would eat the sourdough bread. I was just feeding the yeast in my body. I didn't even realize it. Just so much sugar at that point, so much honey, yeast.
Yeah.
What
Fruit?
else?
Eat a lot of
Coffee.
fruit?
Yeah, fruit. Lots of fruit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Didn't even mention it until now because it was just so ingrained,
Yeah.
Fruit. And yeah, so he was looking it up, and he found the Yin Disease article again, and we both read it, and a lot of it made sense to us, even though it was very much against the consciousness that we were on, or that we adopted from culture. And I remember he said, "Oh yeah, everything except for the thing about capitalism. Doesn't it make sense?"
I was like that. I was like that a few years ago too. That was the last thing for me to jump on board with. I was like, I can't accept this. But after a while, the older you get,
Yeah.
capitalist you become.
Yeah, it's good. So we were just both of us deep down were searching for truth, and I had a lot of I was constipated. We both had pretty bad acne. He had really bad acne, but and a host of other stuff, more emotional stuff he had a lot of physical ailments, but it kind of manifested as more emotional, insecurity and fear and anxiety.
This is you. This is you, the emotional. Yeah.
And we were just all right, let's try it. He was like, we have to heal your yeast infection. And I was like, yeah, we do. And so we were like, okay, we have faith in this, let's do it. And it was just night and day. We just started, and his acne got better really quickly. My infection went away weeks. And I think sugar and coffee, especially sugar, was the hardest thing for me to let go of. I had a lot of withdrawal symptoms, and I would read the sugar addiction article frequently because I was dreaming about it. He was dreaming about me eating sugar behind his back. I was like craving it all the time.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Yeah.
And you was getting what, insomnia, sweats,
I
shaking,
was
or was
getting
it just
shakes. Not
cravings?
really much insomnia. I've always been a pretty like deep sleeper. But yeah, just like breakdowns, like emotional breakdowns. It was probably also from being on the young diet, traumas being released, and um, they still do. They still do. Like I was listening to your pulling down and trauma live stream, and it resonated so much because um, the healthier you do get, the more you're able to process what's inside and process like your traumas. So yeah, dreams became a lot more vivid on the program and like showing me what I needed to address and what was wrong and what was good. And just like um, yeah, random crying spells and like shaking and just intense emotion that I didn't feel before. And I was sort of desensitized to my emotions, just kind of living in a hazy dream. But after starting development, things really started to come up. Um,
And how did you sort of like deal with this? Because, when a lot of people begin the program, yeah, they've got problems or whatever, but when they actually start it and they start getting all of these healing reactions, they start getting all of these intense, things coming up, emotions, traumas. What made you not stop? What made you carry on? What made you not say to Liam, look, this is not working, like I'm gonna do something else? Like what kept you going?
I would read the retracing. I think it's the retracing and healing reactions article. I would read that a lot. I would just go back to it and be like, okay, like I have faith, and I think the Christian background helps because this program is rooted in like biblical truth and just like the best of scientific truth. Like I trust Dr. Wilson. I trust my practitioner, Liam. I trust him. It was really helpful to have somebody else doing it with me who could, we, I feel like our healing reactions kind of like didn't come at the same time. So it was never like catastrophe. So um, we would just kind of talk each other
Help each
through it.
other. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what happens to me.
Yeah. So if you can, like you said, talk to your practitioner, hopefully they're available for you to, you know, just calm you down and tell you, this is the program.
It's so
Like,
important because there's so many different things that can happen, and one of the reasons why I didn't give people much advice on the video the other day with the pulling down exercise and the trauma is because traumas come in all shapes and sizes, and they're attached to so many different toxins, and they're attached to so many different emotions that you have to get in touch with your practitioner. And I think sometimes people get worried about messaging the practitioner too much. I get it all the time. People email me saying, "Oh, I didn't want to bug you." Or I'm like, this is my job. Like, this is what I'm doing. Like, you've got to get in touch and let me know, and don't worry about anything. Give me a call or send me a Telegram message, because it's it's them times whereby as a practitioner you actually get a lot from your job, because it's the times when people are really in them pivotal crux times when the advice that I can give you will mean the most to you. But
mhm.
at the same time, people sort of don't want to get in touch too much because they don't want to bug you or they're worried about what you're going to say. But 9 times, well, not 9 times, like all the time, people will make that effort, and afterwards they'll be like, I'm so glad I got in touch. And for me, those are the conversations that mean the most to me, if that makes sense, because I
Mm,
know that we go in deep, and the information that I can give them is is information that sometimes you don't talk about too much on YouTube because it's very, very specific and unique, But if you've gone through the experiences, it's priceless information sometimes, So for anyone listening, if you are struggling, then don't hesitate to get in touch. Like, please. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, I mean, along those lines, this is kind of jumping ahead, but this past retest, I actually got a retest back from my practitioner less than a week ago. And before I got it back, I was having really bad, just like a lot of crying and worry, just like random episodes. It was hard for me to kind of let go of negativity. And I just texted her and I said, look, I'm feeling this way. Like, I don't know, maybe you can talk to Dr. Wilson and like change my program, because I know that she does that. Dr. Wilson says to reach out and maybe you need your program to be changed. So yeah, they ended up changing my program a bit, and I feel a lot better on this supplement regime. They added more Paramin.
Usually solves most problems. It's a little bit like if you've got a problem with your computer, it's just turn the computer on and off. In nutritional balance, like take more Paramin. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the nutritional balancing version of turn the computer on and off.
Yeah, you better make a meme for that one.
T-shirts.
Keep calm and take more Paramin.
Yeah. But that's it. Again, people don't realize how important it is to get retests, or you know, it took me a long time to realize how a program change can make you feel, and how a supplement change that's being created because of the program change will make you feel but better, like within sometimes hours. I've been in a few situations like that where I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting worse. And then it's like I get my program back and I've like moved from zinc to limcomin, and then I start taking limcomin. Within a few hours, I'm like feeling myself again, and I'm like, oh my god, I've been saved.
Yeah. That was actually another thing on my new program was limcomin, which I haven't taken yet. So I'm not exactly sure what the difference between zinc and limcomin and how they, like what you mean by how they kind of balance each other.
Yeah, I mean, limcomin's used really to balance out low NAK ratio, and it's got a little bit of copper in it. Sometimes people need a bit of copper, if they've got low copper in the blood. But in general, if you've got a low NAK ratio, you feel horrendous. And the thing is, zinc lowers a low NAK ratio. Zinc lowers the NAK ratio. So if you've got a high NAK ratio, you're giving zinc to lower it, to balance it out. But if you keep taking that zinc and you've gone into a low NAK ratio, you start feeling terrible, horrendous.
Wow, I'm going to check my program again after.
So it's so important to change from zinc to limcomin to stop the zinc from pushing the NAK ratio even more down. And as soon as that limcomin does its magic, starts raising the NAK into balance, you can feel completely different within hours. It's fascinating.
Wow, that is fascinating. Yeah, I'm trying to think more about. There were just some interesting patterns that I had that I think are noteworthy. Like in the beginning, my first test, I had a high calcium magnesium ratio, so the spiritual defensiveness pattern. And I actually got that again on this past retest. So it's been about a year and a half on the program. I did a half a year free, and then got my first test in March 2019. Yeah, March 2019. And just this past retest made so much sense to me. Well, my first one, when I had the spiritual defensiveness, I've been reading a lot of that. There's a great article that Dr. Wilson has about that pattern, if anyone else has it. And then he also has an article about spiritual defensiveness versus sympathetic dominance, which I had as well on my second and third retests. But yeah, it's just the spiritual defensiveness is feeling like being in a circumstance where you need to let go of. And at the time I was in that liberal, just that mindset of, the patriarchy. And I had my housemates at the time, my 3 housemates. I was just becoming more and more distant because I was let go of those things. I was starting to
Yeah.
let go of those
It was
things. And
probably
I just,
more your living situation.
what was that?
It was probably more your living situation that was
Yeah.
keeping you in there. I mean, now you're camping out, you know, you keep camping for 2 or 3 months, I can guarantee you that your spiritual defensiveness will probably go.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I felt kind of trapped before we left a week ago. We were just in Liam's attic. Like we were both looking for jobs. We had to just get up and leave all of a sudden at the end of May. I was holding really tightly to my job last May, which I was working on a farm doing like livestock management, and I loved doing that.
Right.
But I was just too attached. Like I just felt like, oh, like I'm never gonna, or I didn't actually believe that, but I was just like, oh, like it's part of my identity, and I need to leave the situation, but I don't know how. So I think all those things brought the spiritual defensiveness back up.
Yeah, probably. So how are you feeling now compared to before you began the program? Like, what are the biggest changes? Like, what's been the biggest eye opener for you?
Definitely just my relationship to femininity and the womanhood, but also at the same time, just an appreciation for masculinity as well. Just a deep understanding of these two energies. And beforehand, before I went on the program and when I met Liam, I was very thin. I looked very sickly, honestly. Liam said I looked like a young boy. Like my hormones were just not there. He said sometimes I looked like just like a third world boy. Like,
Really?
sorry if that offends anyone. But yeah, and I was just kind of like androgynous. The pronoun thing. I was like, oh, like maybe I should go by they them because gender roles are not, they're not based in nature, and we just need to do away with them. And yeah, ever since I
You
started the program,
realize, yeah,
what?
just saying, you realize that all of these things are getting promoted now. You know what I mean? The he, they, it, and the family breakdown. You know what I mean? The man hating, the actual, the BLM movement is actually dividing more people. What's going off is actually the complete opposite that creates a healthy, stable mind and community. Like understanding male, female energies is so important, but yet with what's promoted is this conglomerate of 100 different identities and
Right.
different pronouns. The family unit, which is so important. What's being promoted now is individualism, is ultimate self-expression, completely detached from everyone. You understand what I mean? That's promoted these days. Eating meat, eating an omnivorous, healthy diet with vegetables, some fish, some meat, salt, just basically the diet that we've been living on for the past 300,000 years. Duh. But what's promoted now, just extremes, veganism, fruitarianism, even the carnivore diet, like everything that creates a healthy human, all of the nutrients, not only the nutrients within the body, but the nutrients outside of the body. What's being promoted now in mainstream is basically the opposite. And with that in mind, it does make you realize that we must be run by evil people that want to destroy the world. There's no other
Evil entities.
to me. Yeah, there's no other conclusion that I can reach. And yeah, it's nice to hear someone that's woke up from it, because it's a virus. It is a virus, systemic virus.
Yep.
And the next thing coming down the road is the closure of churches, the closure of religious places. That's the next step, and it'll be under the guise of corona safety, or that religion is actually based on technology and science and facts and all of this sort of stuff. The religion of AI technology, and these sort of idiots that believe in God are sort of ruining it for everyone else.
Yep.
And we're starting to see that now in America. Dr.
Yep.
Fauci, is quick to close the churches, quick to close schools. As soon as someone turns around to him and say, "Well, look, shall we put a stop to these protests?" He doesn't say anything. This is what's going off. But at the same time, you've got to have this faith in God and do the program, and you're saved. You are saved on the program, in my opinion. And I feel saved. I'm pretty sure you feel saved, or you look saved. You're in the field at the moment. Just everything's going fine. Your partner's got a good job. You're probably earning some money. I think I do generally believe if you're on this program, you do get saved. God will save you, even though the world at the moment is chaotic. You're in your little bubble of balanced yin and yang.
Yeah, balanced, exactly. And you can serve those who are ready to be served and receptive to the word and to the program. That's all you really need to do. You don't have to save the whole world through force, like these groups are trying to do and trying to make you believe is necessary, just to stir some fear in you and get your energy. You just have to focus on yourself and start from within, really.
Sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
How are your emotions now? Are they starting to, in the beginning, there's turbulence involved with the program, and I think it's a sign that it's slightly karmatic in the sense of if you take on a negative energy, you have to purge that energy with equal energy. You have to cancel it out. This is where the reactions come in, the withdrawal symptoms, and all that sort of stuff. It's just, got a drink.
Cheers.
All that sort of stuff is part of it, part of evolution, part of development. No one gets away with growing without some pain. It's always teething. Growth pains, probably the best way to look at it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm still I don't know how you feel, but I feel like this journey is going to be long, and I'm still working through a lot of it. And the growing pains, actually, after I started my new program, I feel like they've lessened a lot. And over even the past day, like yesterday, I feel like I felt a major shift in myself, and I was just doing more like biblical reading and just becoming more self-aware and noticing thought patterns and habits when they wouldn't serve me. And I feel like that's just increasing, and I still slip up. I still become unconscious for a bit and act entitled, and but it's just quicker and easier to notice that lately, especially with the pulling down exercise. If you make that just a mode of being as much as you can, then it allows the space and allows the wisdom from God to show you when you're not serving him, and when you're not serving the program or serving the people around you, serving yourself. Like, yeah, it just becomes a lot easier. So
yeah, exactly. And it's just putting yourself in the right environment, putting your body in the correct environment, and putting your being in a good environment. And when you do that, you're basically living in an environment of truth, and no darkness can live in the truth, if that makes sense. It's a little bit like, if you see an animal that's been abused, a factory farmed animal, or you see a dog or a cat on TV that's been abused, and they've just lived in a horrendous environment. They've been eating horrendous food, and we take these animals, we give them the food that they need, we put them in an environment, and they thrive. Do you know what I mean? They don't have to go. They don't go through any mental processes per se like humans do. You know, we've just changed their environment, and the humans are the same. You just change the environment, and all of the stuff will just purge automatically in its own time. And yeah, you've got to process stuff and maybe speak to people about stuff, but it's quite autonomous, which is quite nice. You know, when you think about it, your body is 100% working for you all the time. Whatever you put in, always working for you. You know, 99% of healing is automatic, probably. Only 1% really where you've got to put some effort in, you know. So be thankful for that, you know.
Yeah,
Your
absolutely.
body's probably thinking, come on, you take on my role, I'll take on your role. You know, I'll have a much easier ride if that happens. Whenever you go through these healing reactions, just think to yourself, you know, just thank your body and thank God, and you know, realize that, you know, have gratitude for the situation that you're in and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
And
yep. It's a sign. It's a sign pointing you to where you need to be and who you can become. So
100%. All right. So yeah, brilliant. I mean, is there anything else you want to talk about or say or delve into?
Yeah, there was one more thing that you said. I mean, you were talking about environment, going in the right environment, and we were talking a little bit about EMFs earlier. But ever since we started this road trip, you know, sleeping out in a tent, we just, like Liam especially, had a lot of sleep problems, living in houses, and we tried really hard to like get all the necessary tools to mitigate EMF exposure. And he's just been sleeping so well since we started this trip. And like I just think back to times where we would get in like heated arguments. It's only ever when we're in the house or in the car, which is really EMF. Like we just had smooth sailing.
Blame it on the EMF. That's a great idea.
Yeah. So I mean, I wasn't aware of this stuff before. Liam's pretty sensitive to it, and he's been aware of it for a while. So just learning more about it through him, through the program, I'm like, this is serious stuff. We're human bodies. We need to be connected to the earth and at a good voltage. So many emotional and physical distress. So much distress can come from EMF. So I know Liam thinks that Dr. Wilson should dive deeper into that in the program, but in my life, I find it very important. So definitely do more research about that. Anyone watching who feels that way.
For sure. Hopefully I'll be bringing out an EMF program soon. I don't know if Liam told you, but I'm building a basically a development platform. It's probably the first time anyone's going to hear this on Skype, but it's a big project. It's going to take me a long time to do, and hopefully in the future we'll have people helping out and people working for the company and translating and adding on new additions. And I think one of the add-ons that I want to build is an EMF one, because no one's really created a proper EMF program. They just, you know, we dabble. Obviously, we talk about EMF a lot, but you know, EMFs is the smoking of today, 100%. We're not really going to see the damage of EMFs. You give it 5, 10 years, 20 years, especially when the 5G networks rolled out and they start ramping up the wattage on there. We will begin to see some serious problems. But for anyone that's watching, try and mitigate things now. You know, maybe in 5 years' time we'll all live in a development community somewhere. Just live in the forest somewhere, like little forest trolls, and do the program. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, we'll see what God has in store.
Yeah, I'm excited. And if anyone wants to talk further about their experience and get in touch with me, I'll leave my email with you, Lewis, so you can put it in the description.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to say it now, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So it's Giuliana Hulten at protonmail.com. That's my name, GiulianaHulten at protonmail.com.
Cool. All right, awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. And yeah, we'll probably do another one maybe in a year's time and see how you're getting along. But apart from that, enjoy your time in the fields and yeah, enjoy it while it lasts. And yeah, I'll catch you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for all you're doing, Lewis. I look forward to looking at your streams in the coming weeks and yeah, hopefully catch up at some point.
Awesome.